Hi everybody, this is Fealindale doing my voiceover for Class Wars in August 2016. Here you can look at my stats and see that I did a very different setup than I've done in the past. Here for the first fight I have no Sylph troops on, I have no Eudaimon on, and I'm running only 600,000 magic attack, but I'm running 900,000 PDEF and 1.07 million MDEF. I switched all my tattoos into defense for this, as well as my gems. I'm also running 50,000 block and quite a bit of tenacity, so that I really don't take any damage. And so my plan here is to just survive, do lots of AoEs, and win on the timer. So Asher and I were talking about possibly doing this, and so he did a similar strategy. And we just wanted to see how it would go. You know, we don't have the stats to be as competitive as we used to be. But here you can see I just took, 1.5 million damage from Shady's Delphic there. Just trying to get some of my defenses up. There I got my Guardian Titan going. So, mixed results so far. We were just kind of bored of the same old, trying to get your attack as high as possible and then kill everybody. We've been doing that for a couple of years now. Since the Knighthood came out, everyone's just been going attack, attack, attack for both Class Wars and Titan Wars. And we just wanted to see what happens if you try something different. But here, I just couldn't keep my stats going and Shady took me out. So I put one Sylph on my Sylph team. My first two fights were both against Whitley's, so I just skipped over those in this recording. So my first two fights were both buys, and then lost pretty solidly to Shady there. My stats are pretty good, but just not enough. Shady just hits super hard. And Rira is kind of similar. Here, I used my Lightbringer and hopped up into Sylph mode right away, and I played around with a couple different strategies throughout the night. In past videos, I've talked about how I usually prefer to have my tough fights at the end of the day so that I can tweak my strategy before I get there. But for this Class Wars, Shady and Rira pretty much right off the bat, I didn't have a chance to, figure out what works best. And so, here, I probably could have afforded to have another Sylph troop or a Eudaimon or something, since Rira here is running a full team of 4. And that might have helped me stay alive a little bit better. With these fights, most of the damage is dealt in the last half of the fight, because here the timer's ticking down to 0, and now all damage is being doubled. And so, mostly what I want to do is be able to have some Guardian runes going off at this 100%, and then be able to deal some big damage as well. But here, I just can't stay alive. My Guardian rune was recharging. So here you can see I threw on my Eudaimon. This Eudaimon gives me a couple advantages. One of them is that passive that reduces all damage I take by, I think it's 32%. And my Eudaimon actually doesn't take that much damage. Normally the drawback is that your Eudaimon can, get hit for 5 million damage, but your Eudaimon gets the same defense bonuses that you do. So when I'm running over 1 million MDEF, my Eudaimon also has like 1.1 or 1.2 million MDEF. So she's not taking huge damage like normal. And if she does die in the first 60 seconds, it's not that big of a deal. There she just took, 2 million damage, which isn't awful. But I can still do some AoEs, and if I hit each of Honey's opponents, for 500,000 damage, then that's just as much damage as Honey just dealt to my Eudaimon, which will help me win on timer. Another advantage of having that Eudaimon on there is it gives me some chaos resistance, so I can do some heals. It also increases my rage maximum up to 150, so my rage rune is a little more versatile. And it reduces the amount that my awakening points get depleted when I'm in Sylph mode, so I can stay in Sylph mode longer. I opted to have my Eudaimon on instead of a second Sylph because I only have 2 Friggas and I really wanted to run Frigga. I think Asher ended up doing something a little bit different, but that gave, there's some pluses and minuses. Also, yeah, if my Eudaimon dies in the first 60 seconds, they're not going to take big damage. So there, win on the timer against Honey, right before she would get a Delphic off that might have done a lot of damage. And here's Ice running without a Eudaimon. So possibly trying to go for timer wins as well. I'm running about 50,000 light and dark resistance today, though. Since Ellington, and Ray 7, and Chili Mac all failed to show up for Class Wars. Or they all, none of them were in Warlord's Hall, at least. I actually abandoned one of my wind dimensions and switched it over to some other stuff. Normally I run at least 2 wind dimensions, but all of the top wind players were gone this week. So I was able to run more light and dark, so I feel pretty confident that Ice's AoEs won't do as much damage as mine, because he probably doesn't have a whole lot of water res. Yep, there you can see plus 23%, and he's hitting me for like minus 45% or something. So I feel pretty confident here against Ice that I'm doing a whole lot more damage than he is. I just hit his whole team for 500,000, which is, 1.5 million total, which is a lot more than he's able to hit me for. And with those Frigga shields, it says 0 damage, but it actually counts the damage that the shield is absorbing when it goes to timer. So like there, it showed a whole bunch of zeros on that AoE that I just did, but it actually does compute. Starting around this point in the evening, I'm starting to use that Hell's Requiem defensively. I'll try to use a Hell's Requiem when damage is at 100%. If you're not familiar with that spell, it's in my hotkey number 1 slot right now. It's an AoE, and it reduces all damage my opponents deal by 35% for 2 rounds. So if I throw out that Hell's Requiem right when they're about to do a big Delph, I can reduce the damage they deal, which will help me win on timer. So at this point, I'm kind of figuring out that my 4 defensive options are, I have my Guardian Rune, my Guardian Titan, I have that passive my Eudaimon has, and then I also have Hell's Requiem. And between those 4, I can pretty much keep 1 or 2 of them going at all times. There I just use my Rage Rune to get my Guardian Titan up before Gwyn could use her Delphs. So I take almost no damage. Another thing I did for this week is I switched off, since I switched off all of my gems from crit and put them all into defensive stuff. And so, since I have no crit, I also switched over my Astral that increases crit damage and just put it on the one that increases all damage. I forget what they're all called. Will Destroyer is the one that I added. So you can see that I'm not hitting any crits, I'm getting blocked a lot, but it's increasing my damage by 60%. So I thought it was kind of worth it. Here again, try to stay alive. At least I have my rune prepared. Try to throw that on. This is about the lowest health I can ever handle. It freaks me out. There, I even took a big hit, but my defenses are just so high. Able to stay alive. Get off another big AoE. There I was hitting, 2 million on each of those, so that's a whole lot of damage. And here's Salistar, not to be confused with Salander. Salistar is using an Odin, and a full setup with Eudaimon and 2 Sylphs. So immediately, I feel confident that I can do well because I have a lot of light and dark resistance. Odins are just not going to be able to hit me hard at all, even though they do physical attack. And then he has a full team, so I'm going to be able to do enough AoE damage to take him out, to win on the timer. I also like that stun on my Eudaimon. I run max influence on the Eudaimon gems, and I used to get a lot more stuns. Ellington thought it was like a 10% stun ratio, but I was finding more like a 50% back a couple months ago. But lately, it's been not nearly as effective, and so I still keep that stun on there because, I mean, you gotta have some Delphic, right? And I don't really want the other Delphic that gives my Eudaimon more health, necessarily, because then my Eudaimon can take more damage. And the whole point here is to take less damage. So, I keep the stun on there. If I manage to get a stun off, then it's just like a bonus. It used to be very tactical and very useful, though. Here, Salistar hit me with one of those amnesias right at the right time so that I lose a couple attacks. I've been noticing I've been having that problem with Titans lately too, where I'll use a Titan, but I'm trying to cast a spell, and then all of my skills darken out, and I can't cast any spells for a couple turns. And that really bothers me. I wish they'd fix that or find a way around it. I try to just pay attention and not get caught doing that. Here's Zardoz, who's, I've never beaten. He's one of the strongest players. He's one of the heaviest cashers in the game. But here he's running his normal Odin and his pretty much his normal setup, except that normally I think he has his Eudaimon in the front. But with him having a full team, I'm confident that if I can stay alive till timer, I might be able to pull off a win here. So, using that Hell's Requiem defensively, and then here I'm intentionally not getting into Sylph mode right away, so that all of his Delphics will hit me and not my Eudaimon, or not my Sylph, so that I don't take as much damage. So they're using another Hell's Requiem defensively, and now he's out of Delphics by the time I pop up into Sylph mode, so that I don't have to worry about Seraphim in the back taking damage. Doing my AoEs. Now he's doing his AoEs, but that's fine. I already got my biggest hit off, and already lost myself. He hits so hard, and now he's got a Chaos out, so I have no way to heal. So I'm just trying to cycle through a whole bunch of spells. I used that rune to try to shake off the Chaos, and I got through the Chaos, and now I can heal. Now we're getting into big damage time, where damage is at 100%. At this point, I'm not really sure who's done more damage, because I've been focusing a lot on healing and trying to stay alive. And so I've not been able to pump out a lot of damage. And really, I'm like, oh no, I'm going to die right here. He's got a big hit coming in, and I died. But he killed me too late, and the battle had already been decided. So he killed me, but I still got the win out of it, because he killed me too late. And here's Asher doing the same strategy I am. He and I actually did some practice fights, just dueling in Cloud City. And he beats me pretty soundly every time. But of course we weren't able to try it with Sylph troops on. Here you can see he's running his Odin with 2 Friggas. I really wanted to keep a Frigga on for this, because players don't run water resistance, and that would allow me to deal more damage to my opponent's Sylph troops, which could potentially help me pull out a victory. Whereas, like, in this fight, I have a lot of light and dark resistance, so that my Sylph troop won't take very much damage from Asher's Odin. Also, he killed my Eudaimon in the first minute. So now, really, he has a team of 3 and I have a team of 2, which works to my advantage if this goes to timer, because my AoEs are hitting a lot more. Yeah, that was a plus 66% there. So the his Friggas are taking a lot of damage. But the thing with Asher, even with him nerfing his attack a lot, he still hits really hard. I mean, Asher has been one of the toughest mages in the game for years. And so that's not about to go away just because he's switched his stats over to defense. Here I'm terrified, like, oh, he's just going to take me out. He just hit me and killed me. But my Sylph is still alive. I think whoa, okay, that was a heal. So I think he kind of shot himself in the foot by using 2 Sylphs on his team, because I got the win on timer because I was able to hit AoEs against his whole team. Also, the Odin was a bit of a drawback because most people run a lot of light and dark resistance. So I'm not sure why he ran Odin instead of Frigga. So I beat Asher twice now, yay! I beat him this month and last month. But at this point, we're a lot less competitive than we used to be, because we're not really trying to win so much anymore. We're just kind of coming up with new strategies and figuring out how to keep the game fresh and, you know, change how we play and try different things just for the fun of it. So it's not really about winning and losing anymore, but it's always fun to win. Actually, Asher was asking me if he wanted me to, if I wanted him to throw the match in Class Wars, if I was going to be doing well enough to win. But at this point, I had already lost against I'd lost against Re-Ra and Shady. So we both, you know, went all out to see who would do better, and I beat him. So at this point, I have 2 losses, and I think he has 3 losses. Big Bailey is always a tough player. I think so far I'm doing a pretty good job of juggling those damage reduction strategies I mentioned earlier. So whenever he's about to get a big hit out, I have some kind of damage reduction shield out. I switched up my Sylph skills as well a little bit on my backup Sylph. Normally I run that attack buff, but since I'm not really trying to kill my opponents, I thought it would be better to have a heal on my Sylph so that I can stay alive to the end more easily. And that's part of the reason I threw on that Sylph in the first place. I was worried, especially in those first 2 fights, that I would die without more heals going out, because I'm not using a heal rune, so really my only 2 heals are my heal Titan and then my 1 heal when I'm in Sylph mode. But that is a 45-second recharge, so I can really only do it once or twice. So I got that going on my backup Sylph. Here's Groot, who's always very tanky, but he's running a full team, so immediately I'm already pretty confident that I can do well. Also using a Frigga, he can only do magic attack, and I have, you know, a preposterous amount of magic defense right now, so I'm not too worried about losing to him on time. The thing with this strategy, though, is that all of my fights end up being really close fights. It doesn't matter if I'm fighting Zardoz or somebody who just made it into Warlord's Hall for the first time. All of these fights really could go either way because they're going to timer. And so it all just matters who gets a crit when and who manages to throw up a Guardian rune at the right time. So it was a very exciting night for Class Wars. Really, really fun, because every single battle was just like, how is this fight going to go? Let's find out. Here, I'm really curious about Groot using an Odin and a Thor as troops and a Frigga as a main. I'm sure he's doing it that way for the resistance advantage, because nobody uses water res. But that just seems very strange to me, to have only 1 Frigga and to use it as your main, because Friggas are such great troops. And honestly, Thor really is not that great of a troop. I've seen several people use it, and it does some good damage, I guess, but it's just not all around a good strategy, I don't think. So there I get the win on him, and here I can see that I'm in 4th place, and if the top 2 players get one more loss, I'll be tied for 1st. So I'm starting to get really excited here. We're getting more than halfway through Class Wars, and I've already fought, most of the top players. I've Asher, Zardoz, Re-Ra, and Shady. And then those other 3 top players didn't even show up tonight. So I'm getting really excited, saying, wow, I could possibly place, maybe even take 1st if Asher is able to pull out a win against some of those guys. So I'm trying to keep that strategy going. You can see how much better I am at rotating my shields. Pretty much keeping my Guardian Titan, Guardian Rune, or that Hell's Requiem going pretty much at all times. There, my backup troop took quite a bit of damage, but at least I didn't. And I think that if I had fought Re-Ra and Shady later in the day, I would have maybe pulled out a win against them just because I was so much better at rotating around those shields. Now we're in the last minute, and in the last minute I kind of realized I can't worry about getting into Sylph mode, so I'm not using a Lightbringer there. I'm just doing the Hell's Requiem, trying to do damage. A Lightbringer in the last minute is kind of shooting yourself in the foot because you really need to be doing damage with every single attack. Here I really got to get out that Titan or that rune before he hits, and I didn't. So that might have turned the tide for damage. And nope, I still got the win. So you can see how every single fight is just like neck and neck. Here I'm tied for 1st, and I'm getting really excited because both of those players have lost one. We're in a 4-way tie for 1st. I know I don't have the BR to actually get 1st, but it's really exciting to see myself, that high up in the rankings. And here's Fealindale, not to be confused with Salistar, running a very similar setup to Salistar, though. I think here Fealindale is using a Wind and a Frigga Sylph for backup, though, which will help him stay in Sylph mode better. Here you can see I got stuck. I can't cast any skills because of that Titan glitch. That really bothers me. That stopped, that prevented me from getting off 1 or 2 attacks. It also distracted me a little bit from my setup. Here I'm throwing on my Guardian Rune, but I'm already in Sylph mode. Using my own steel and my Sylph steel, we stopped Fealindale from being able to get his Delphic off, which is always kind of a goal. His Eudaimon is already dead, which means you won't take quite as much damage. But again, I have that resistance advantage that I'm hitting him for water, which is plus 23%, but I have quite a bit of light and dark resistance. Here I made a mistake. You can see him using Lightbringer at 100%. Not supposed to do that, because now he just did a steal, and I still can't get into Sylph mode. And all of this really important last 45 seconds of fight, I'm just sitting here, not able to even attack. Trying to get off some last second big damage, but he gets a big Delphic against my Sylph. And here I'm in a lot of trouble. And I lost on timer. So I lost to Fealindale. I was really kicking myself right there. I really should not have done a Lightbringer. Otherwise, I think I would have beaten him if I had done my Hell's Requiem. So really kicking myself right here, but oh well. That's part of the excitement of these fights, that they can really go either way. Here's another Odin. You can really see just everybody's using Odin tonight. I think Shady is about the only Thor that I've fought all night. So perhaps I didn't need that electric and fire dimensions that I had open. I could have done an extra light and dark. Might have helped me win against Re-Raw or that last one against Fealindale. But you never know. You know, it's kind of a toss of the dice every single time. You don't know what people are going to use, and so you just kind of make the best setup you can. Here, Onslaught's using a full setup, and he's using those attack buffs, trying to actually kill me, which doesn't really work very well when I have preposterous amounts of resistance and defense. You can see I waited for him to finish his Sylph round before I went into Sylph mode, so that my Sylph wouldn't take that damage. And now we're getting into that 100%. I'm trying to stop him from getting into Sylph mode, but I'm unable to, because now he can do some big damage against myself. So I need to do some big damage against his. There I kind of lucked out that he killed myself with a weaker attack, so he didn't take damage from a Delphic. See, that was a big Delphic. I had no shields and not in Sylph mode, and I still only took less than 1,000,000 damage. Whereas a single AoE from me will deal maybe twice that to his team. That's the big advantage of those teams. So I pull out a win against Onslaught, and so there we have it. I finish out with 12 wins and 2 buys. So I went 12-2 or 12-3, which is really 10 wins because 2 of those were buys. So 10 wins, 3 losses, and 2 buys. And I pull out a 4th place, tied in number of wins with Zardoz. And I was really kicking myself. I could have done better if I had won against Fealindale. That's one that I could have won against. And I might have done better against Re-Raw and Shady if I had tweaked my strategy by the time I faced them. But it was really, really fun. I haven't had this much fun in Class Wars in a really long time. And so, congratulations to the victors. The top 2 players both beat me, so I guess it's fair that they, you know, it's very fair. They took first and second. They definitely earned it. They beat a lot of other players. Interesting to see so few wins this time around. Usually there's at least, you know, the top player has at least 14 wins. So it was a much closer fight this time around. A lot of fun, though, and I'll be around for more videos. Thanks for watching.